Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday night, December 3rd, 2018, 7 p.m. And our first item of business will be to establish the quorum. We have all but one member present with us tonight. Our next item of business is not listed on the agenda up on the screen, but what we do need to do is amend the agenda tonight because we do have an additional ordinance for a first reading. That would be Ordinance 15113. And if I could have a motion from a council member to amend the agenda?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor of amending the agenda to add this ordinance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, thank you. The ordinance or the agenda has been amended. And we do have some additional people come on in and have a seat. And we're just starting our business meeting. Thank you. The next item of business is the disposition of minutes for the regular session held on November 19th, 2018. And if I could have a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The minutes have been approved. The next item is communications. And are there any communications from council members? Councilmember Katsas?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to remind the public that coming up, the next Athens City School Board meeting for December is December 20th at 6:30 p.m. in the Athens High School Auditorium in the Plains.
Okay, thank you. Communications from any other council members? Okay. Then reports and communications from other elected officials. Law Director Eliason? No, okay. And Auditor Hecht?
No report.
But we do have our treasurer, our city treasurer, Mary Ann McClure, is with us tonight. She comes quarterly to report to us on interest income. So if you could come and give us your report. Thank you.
Go ahead. Excuse me, the voice is a little raspy. I've gone ahead and given you copies of the report, third quarter, but I added October for one reason. The interest at the end of September, 183,338.07, which was leading us well towards the target of 208,548. I did transfer 3 CDs that were at Hocking Valley Bank. I pulled them out in October to start them with a higher interest rate that they were offering. Mm-hmm. And that's why I included October, so you could see the increase in where it's coming from. It's not part of the normal monthly earnings, but they have gone up a little bit because of the interest rate hikes courtesy of the Fed. And, the fact that we have been able to keep some money in the remainder of the debt proceeds during the year while the pool was being paid off, so we were able to earn some there as well.
Good. Okay, thank you.
And I've included just a copy of the September bank reconciliation so you can see balances just for your information. Mm-hmm. Are there any questions from anybody?
We appreciate your taking the time. Yes, Councilmember McGee.
I just have one question. Is there any policy that the city has for keeping our funds in local banks rather than making a few more dollars and putting them in other banks who are benefiting from our money?
Not specifically, but that is my goal, and most of our money is in the local banks. We do, when we had the bond money, we did need to set it aside, so we did include that with some of our other investments. I participate in the Star Ohio as well, City of Athens does, which has local banks all over the state, but most of our money is here in town.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of our short-term interest rates when we're needing to do that to borrow money are often with the local banks too. So,
yes.
Yeah, but that's good to know. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll look forward to seeing you next quarter with hopefully even better interest rates. Okay, and Mayor Patterson, communications.
I have 4 tonight. The first one is that I received a letter late last week, and it was from an individual. I couldn't tell whether it was in the city of Athens or if it was out in the county, but someone who was concerned about the condition of the roads in Athens County. I also received a letter from Columbia Gas of Ohio informing us that there will be a demand side management rider as well as a infrastructure replacement program rider. This will be an increase to gas bills for anyone who uses Columbia Gas of Ohio. This will begin in February. They're estimating that the increase will generate $15.6 million collected through both of the riders that I just indicated, beginning in May of 2019. And what Columbia Gas customers could expect is a 67-cent increase per month, which represents a 10% increase in their utility bill. Again, for those who use Columbia Gas. I can likely get this to Scott Thompson for Government Channel and put that up on our website for anyone who wants to read it in more detail. It is lengthy, but it describes some of the infrastructure changes that will go along with that, which are replacing cast iron, wrought iron, unprotected coated steel, and bare steel distribution pipes, as well as hazardous customer service lines.
That makes me think that it might be helpful also as we're reviewing the sewer rate increases to likewise post something on our website for the explanation of why that will be going into effect. And,
sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Another item that I have is that yesterday, between the hours of 10 and noon, there was a West Side neighborhood meeting that was held about to talk about safety and whatnot. And I have to say there was roughly 48, 49 people in attendance. City Auditor Kathy Heck was there. City Council Member, First Ward City Council Member Kent Butler was there, and I was there as well. And it was a very good meeting. It was a good meeting, a lot of engagement with those who live on the West Side, again, sharing concerns they have about safety. They talked about lighting. They talked about a number of other things. And I have to say, at the end of the meeting, the civility in that room was outstanding. And so I want to just mention that to council. Again, I think it was a great meeting. It was so productive that I encouraged them to have follow-on meetings. So likely in the future, we will continue to have monthly meetings, if not at the Cider House, which is where the meeting was yesterday, possibly at Arts West or some other location. And so I would encourage other council members to come if you should choose. But it was a great meeting. I don't know if Auditor Heck wants to add anything to that. You were there. It was.
No, you were right. We talked about a lot of things. It was a good meeting.
Good meeting.
And I'm pretty sure they will continue to have more.
And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We'll proceed now with our ordinances, and our rules of council state, as indicated by Ohio Revised Code, that we have 3 readings of our ordinances. So on the 3rd reading, it's a brief introduction by the person sponsoring the ordinance, and then we have time for comments. On the 2nd reading, we usually just read the title only, unless there is a motion or a need to suspend a particular ordinance, or if somebody has an additional comment to make. And then we will, as we've amended the agenda earlier this evening, we will have 1 ordinance for first reading, and it's at that first reading that's the introduction of the ordinance for the first time with an explanation by the council member sponsoring that. So our ordinances for 3rd reading. 12118 is an ordinance authorizing an emergency medical service land use and lease agreement between the City of Athens and the Athens County Commissioners, and is introduced by Council Member Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt 12118.
Second.
We've talked about this several times. It's for a piece of property that was donated to the county and the city for emergency medical services use for now and into the future. A very generous donation from the company. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of this ordinance. Any other comments or questions from council members? I know we have a comment from the mayor.
Just clarify that the land was donated to the City of Athens and that we're entering into a shared use agreement with the county. So
Okay.
the property does belong to the city.
Thank you. All right, and any other comments or questions from the audience? All right, we'll have a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 12218 is an ordinance accepting an easement on Hillcrest Drive from the Board of Commissioners of Athens County and is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt 12218.
Second.
This particular piece of property that is the easement is on will help to ease the problems between several jurisdictions that comes together on this one particular road, and then it will be able to be easier in the future doing maintenance and such.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and second for approval of this ordinance. Are there any other comments or questions from council, administration? Any comments or questions from the audience? All right. We'll have a vote of all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 12318 as an ordinance amending Title 39, the Wellhead Protection Plan, is introduced by all members of council, and I believe Councilmember Crowell will be speaking to it.
Thank you. I move that we adopt ordinance 12318.
Second.
This ordinance is really the cleanup language in our wellhead protection plan, specifying the time under which reports need to be made and cleaning up exactly to whom it needs to be made. Thank you.
Okay. We have the motion and second for adoption of 12318. Are there any other comments or questions from administration or council members? Yes, Councilmember Reisner.
I just want to go on record to say that I think this is a very good example of a community governing itself, setting its own rules for its own protection. And I think it's something that we should be aware of and not let other governmental bodies take that right away from us later on.
Okay, thank you for the comment. All right, we have a motion and second for approval of 12318. Any other comments or questions from the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 12618 is an ordinance suspending Athens City Code Section 7.05.03, continuous parking in the same location from Sunday, December 16th, 2018 through midnight on Tuesday, January 1st, 2019, and declaring an emergency. Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, thank you. At this moment, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 12618.
Second.
And this is straightforward. Basically, due to the holidays, the city decides that it's a good idea not to enforce the 24-hour parking rules. This allows people to come and go, visit family, and also come into town and not have to worry about this this parking variance that is in effect during the rest of the year.
Thank you. We have a motion and second for approval of 12618. Any comments or questions from council, administration? Any comments or questions from the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We'll now move on to ordinances for second reading. 13118 is an ordinance affirming the mayor's execution of an agreement with the Athens City Fraternal Order of Police, Ohio Labor Council, and the City of Athens Communications Officers concerning wages and working conditions, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Okay. No comments or questions. We'll move on. 13218 is an ordinance authorizing and affirming the mayor's execution of an agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, known as AFSCME Local 1, concerning wages and working conditions, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. No comments or questions. We'll move on to 13318. Is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a licensure and land use agreement with Ohio University. This is introduced by Councilmember Butler. Okay, no comments or questions, we'll move on to 134-18, an ordinance amending Title 11 Business Regulations, Chapter 11.04, vending, peddling, and soliciting, and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Crowell. And if no comments or questions, we'll move on. 135-18 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into or to extend the agreement with the Board of Athens County Commissioners for the purpose of obtaining the services of the Public Defender's Office through December 31st, 2019, introduced by Councilmember Reisner. No comments or questions? 136-18 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 2913 to increase sewer rates in accordance with the Athens City Code and declaring an emergency, introduced by all members of council. No comments or questions. We'll move on to 137-18, an ordinance amending Ordinance 128-12, establishing the allocation of sewer service charges to the Sewer Debt Fund 758, and declaring an emergency. It's introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. No comments or questions. We'll move on to 138-18. An ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into contract with the Employee Benefits Service Center to serve as the city's third-party health insurance administrator, a TPA, and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner. And if no questions or comments, we'll move on. 139-18 is an ordinance authorizing a stop-loss medical insurance contract and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner. And we'll move on then to 140-18, if no questions or comments. An ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Athens, Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2019. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Ordinance 141-18 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 71-16, authorizing non-union pay grades and declaring an emergency, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. And no comments or questions? Okay. 142-18 is an ordinance authorizing 2019 staffing levels and non-union compensation, repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. If no comments or questions, we'll move on to 143-18, which is an ordinance adopting a fringe benefit package for non-union personnel with the City of Athens and repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith and declaring an emergency, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Madam President, I'd like to offer an amendment to 143-18.
Okay.
The reason for I'm doing this at the bequest of the City Service Safety Director, who informs me that the language that I'll read in a moment needs to be placed into the non-union personnel salary and fringe benefit package, which is on our disk drive and is 36 pages long. It will go on page 16, and the reason is to provide flexibility to manage water and wastewater treatment systems under the new, more stringent EPA requirements.
Okay, so we have an amendment and motion and second for amending 143-18 to insert some language into the code. All those in favor, or excuse me, amendments I think can have discussion. I believe that they can. Is there any kind of comments or questions? If not, we'll have the vote on amending this ordinance. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, the ordinance has been, and if you could read through the language for us one more time, what that is that it's adding.
This is on page 16, backup operator of record. The employer may designate an employee to serve as the backup operator of record for the water treatment, water distribution, wastewater treatment plant, and wastewater collection system. Hourly employees who act as backup operators of record in situations, and this is where language to be inserted, where they are not normally required to back up in accordance with their job descriptions, continue, shall receive $2 per hour for all hours worked as the backup operator of record. Salary employees who act as backup operator of record new language, outside their normally required duties under their job description, to continue, shall receive $16 per day for all days' work as the backup operator of record.
Okay, thank you for that language. So we have a motion and second for amending the ordinance. We haven't voted yet, have we? I don't think. Okay, so we need to vote. All those in favor of amending 143.18 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the ordinance has been amended and read for the first time. 144.18 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 5411, Water and Sewer Regulations, and is introduced by Councilmember Butler. If no comments or questions, we'll move on to 145.18, which is an ordinance amending Athens City Code, Title 9, General Regulations, Chapter 9.02, Fire Prevention, to add Section 9.02.06, Inspections and Fees. And this is also introduced by Councilmember Butler. Any comments or questions? Okay. We'll move on to 146.18, an ordinance amending Ordinance 4110, Contractor Registration, Annual Fee. This is introduced by Councilmember Fall. No comments or questions. We'll move on to 147.18, an ordinance amending Athens City Code, Title 11, Chapter 11.07, Solicitors and Peddlers, Section 11.07.05, License Fee, introduced by Councilmember Fall. If no comments or questions on that, we'll move on to 148.18, an ordinance amending Ordinance 118.17, and Title I, General Provisions, to establish fees as required by the Athens City Code. And this is introduced by all council members. And if no comments or questions, we'll move on to 149.18, which is an ordinance establishing Athens City Code Title 49, Management, Administration, and Control of the Use of the City's Public Rights of Way, introduced by all council members. No questions on this. We'll move on to 150.18, an ordinance amending ordinances 409, 311, 124.12, and 124.14, and the Athens City Code, establishing salaries for certain elected officials. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. And if no questions, then we'll move on to our new ordinance 151.18. And this is an ordinance amending the 2018 appropriation ordinance and is introduced by by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. This will be a first reading for this ordinance. Allow me to read Section 1 and 2. Section 1, the 2018 appropriation ordinance 150.17 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the following sums: $2,000 to Community Center, 271 Transaction Code 100 for personnel costs, $20,000 to Water Management Fund, 740.635 Transaction Code 100 for personnel costs, $7,000 to Sewer Maintenance Fund, 750.635 Transaction Code 100 for personnel costs, and $70,000 to Garbage Fund, 760 TC 300 for final payment of the year to the Athens Hockey and Recycling Center, increasing the total appropriations by said amounts. Section 2, the 2018 appropriation ordinance 150.17 is further amended by decreasing Sewer Plant Fund 750.637 Transaction Code 500 capital outlay line by $35,000 and increasing Sewer Plant Fund 750.637 Transaction Code 300 supplies and services by same amount to cover 2018 electric service and decreasing and increasing the total appropriations by said amount.
Thank you. And this is the end of the readings of the ordinances. And I know it seems like a long list tonight. I wanted to thank administration and council members and our law director, Eliason, because I know a lot of these ordinances that we're passing, these are the things that are required for us to make sure things are in good order with our codes and with our fees. There's been some revision of our vending and peddlers code, and I know Councilmember Crowell has been working on that. And our auditor has been working closely as we work through making sure that the benefits, the salaries, and the fringe benefits are in place, and as is our insurance for being self-insured for the city. It's a lot of work, and it's a push at the end of the year. I appreciate the audience's patience in listening to all the titles of these amendments, but it's what keeps us operating, so thank you. Do we have any announcements or other business from council members? If not, Mayor Patterson.
President Isley, I'd like to add to your thank you. You know, someone who's been working tirelessly for us, the City of Athens, is our tax administrator, Tina Timberman, and going up to Columbus, giving testimony. She has really worked hard to protect the city, and I have to give her a lot of thank you for everything that she does. She's well respected up at the State House, you know, given her knowledge and her tenacity to make sure that we still hang on to home rule for a sundry of different things, but to include tax collection, and she's just done a wonderful job. I just want to have that on record. That
seconded by all members of council, I'm sure. So thank you to her. Thanks for remembering that. Okay. We always, at the end of these business meetings, have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services not covered on the agenda. So if there's anyone with us tonight that wishes to make a comment about something, it's an opportunity. You just need to announce for us your name and address, and if you represent a particular organization, and you have 3 minutes. It's an opportunity to make a comment. It's not something that if you have a question or an issue to raise that we can necessarily provide answers for you. But it does give persons an opportunity to raise issues so that if they need to come up for further discussion with administration or with city council committees, then this is a good first start for that. And I don't see anybody that's interested in speaking tonight. All right. Well, perhaps on some other evening. And so we will be meeting again next week, finishing the agenda for the rest of the year. But for now, we could have a motion to adjourn. And okay. Okay, we have a motion and second for adjourning tonight's meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The meeting's adjourned at 7:29 p.m. Thank you so much.